This is Hobbes, and another day, another Hobbes hot takes. Today we're going to be talking about Noctis and around 6 reasons why I think he's not a good addition to Tekken 7. We're gonna be throwing some dirt on his name, and even I chose the most flattering costume, the most flattering stage. Even still, I can't get over how trash this guy is. First off, let me talk about the one obvious good thing about him before I get to the bad, is that his animations are very fluid. Very fluid. Very fluid. Especially a move like this. Wow, that is a very fluid launcher. It's just great. And it makes you want to do combos, you know? It's pretty cool. And he feels very snappy, in my opinion. In particular, the moves are this, bam, very smooth, and what is it? That move. Wow, the animation's great. Great stuff. This one too. This one too. And obviously this one. Or hold on. That one. So he has some great animations. Having said all that, let's go ahead and get to the cons. So first thing is that, this dude doesn't fit into the Tekken roster. Why is that a problem? And that's a very contentious topic. People argue about that in terms of the fit, and a lot of people say, oh well, you had Gon in Tekken 2 or 3, and you have Yoshimitsu, who's always used a sword and stuff like that. They always make these they always use exceptions, but that's not the rule. And so the rule for Tekken is it's a martial arts tournament. It's called the King of Iron Fist, where people use martial arts styles. And so him using a sword and him being from a series that's not tangent to Tekken means he obviously doesn't fit, right? The problem with that is that it does two things. It's that either A, you fall in the camp of me, who's more of a traditionalist, to where he doesn't fit into the cast, so I prefer the normal cast over the DLC characters. And this is a problem with not just Noctis, but the DLC characters in general. So he doesn't fit into the main roster. So you can, like I said, you can think that, the main roster is better because they're more traditional, they're more integrated into the story, and they're perceived as not as cheap. And so you won't prefer the odd man out, let me say that. Or B, you can fall into the other camp of saying that, especially if you're new to Tekken 7, then you're thinking like, characters like Noctis, Lydia, fucking Leroy, they're just way cooler than the rest of the cast. So what that does is that now you only want to play the DLC characters, which diminishes your opinion on the legacy cast. And so you don't care to play any of the legacy characters. Now like a Gonryu or Miguel, even though Gonryu's DLC is still a legacy character. Even like a Gigas or something like that. Katarina, like why would you play that when you can play a DLC characters, which are obviously more flashier. They perceived as more cooler, and they're more effective in the game. They're higher in the tier list. So it just segments people into two camps, since you introduce a character into a game that doesn't fit in every sense of the word. He clearly uses swords. Not only does he use swords, but his swords materialize out of nowhere. He has bombs, he has magic. Now there's other characters that have different things like that, sorta. Maybe like a Lars or an Elisa, or characters that are more fantasy, right? Even Devil Jin with the lasers. But this guy is not just a swordsman, right? There's more going on, right? As evident from his grabs. So again, this creates kind of a divide and conquer scheme among the Tekken fans, in my opinion. That's a problem with that. So his second problem is the fact that the transition animations of his manifesting armaments are lacking, in my opinion. What do I mean by that? Well, when you in the battle, like once you're playing, you really can't tell where his weapons are coming from. It looks like he always had it. You know what I'm saying? Like if I do this slash, where did the sword come from? At the normal game speed, where did that come from? Can't really tell. You know what I'm saying? It's too fast, and there's not a well rendered, or there's not a very clear visual in terms of when does he manifest his weapon. The problem with that is that in game speed, because like when we're animating as an animator, you always have to take into account what's the FPS, what's the frames per second, and is it translatable, or is it visual, or is it clear to see what's the transition from frame to frame. And so once I'm doing his moves, there are certain ones like this, like that, where it's very clear to see that it's clearer to see that he manifests a weapon like that, right? And that too, especially if I hold it. But you see what I mean in terms of the transition animation, to where there's nothing really happens there. All of a sudden, the weapon just happens. There's a little blue spark, right? There's a little blue spark. If I can press start like that, then there's a little blue spark and then the weapon comes. Little blue spark and then the weapon comes. But really, without that blue flash, it's just the weapon just appears out of nowhere. So it's not very visually pleasing or clear as to where it comes out. And so that's something that's not good in terms of his overall animation profile, in my opinion. Because it just seems like his weapons appear out of nowhere, you know? And I understand Tekken's a fast game, but even cool moves like that, it just feels random to me. Speaking of his weapons and speaking of randomness, how does he decide what weapons he wants to manifest? I see a sword. I think I saw an axe one time. I see a javelin, a little spear. I even see a shield. How do you do a shield? He can do a shield. I just don't know how to do it. There we go. See a shield, javelin, sword. But what are these like? Because without me knowing the source material of the game, you should still demonstrate to me, the person who animates the game, the character, or who brings it from Final Fantasy here, you should still demonstrate to me some sort of like lore or some sort of origin story, if that makes sense. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason why he's using these particular weapons. It just seems random axe, random shield, random sword, hee. You know what I mean? So throwing some punches and kicks, you know, because it's Tekken, right? There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason as to why he's selecting the particular weapons he's selecting. And so, the more I think about it, this guy's like a Dollar General Necrid to me. Necrid from Soul Calibur 2. To where Soul Calibur 2, he did the same thing in terms of he manifested weapons out of nothing, right? He did the same thing in terms of manifesting weapons out of thin air. However, all the weapons he used were weapons that the other cast had, that the other characters in the Soul Calibur 2 cast had. But he still used it in a creative way to do certain combos and certain techniques. He still combined the different plasma formed weapons of other casts to, like I said, to do combination attacks. And he was in a sword game, and he was in a sword wielding game, or a weapons based game, which made him fit into the roster better. This guy, like I said, he's doing the same thing, but where are these weapons coming from, and why are you using these weapons? So that's why I think it's just pretty random to me. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna keep grilling this guy. Okay, next point is that personality wise, he seems to be like okay, if I go through his taunt and stuff like that, he just seems to be generic anime protagonist, in my opinion.
Hell yeah.
And then if you know his like intros and endings with him sitting down with that guy and him fishing, he just seems like a normal, you know, run-of-the-mill good guy, which is kind of boring. And again, I'll compare it to Necrid again, since he has the same sort of style. To where Necrid, he spoke in an incomprehensible language.
You win.
He was a big beast who looked like he was from Mad Max or something. Or looked like he was from Days of Future Past or something. He wore armor. He has glowing eyes. He manifests weapons. And he seemed very aggressive. Yet very philosophical, maybe. Because he spoke a lot, but you can never understand what he's saying. So he was way more interesting than this guy. Despite not even knowing what he's saying. And there not being a translation available. So without knowing Necrid's story, because we know that he was created by Todd McFarlane, I believe the comic creator who created Venom, among other characters. So he was just created for that game. However, even without having a solid story or any sort of story for Necrid, they still gave off the impression that he's an interesting person, you know, which is what you need to do in a fighting game. You know, that's the whole goal. A fighting game doesn't need a story, in my opinion, as long as you give us enough story, implied story within the moveset. And that's why I feel like this guy lacks in. 6th point, which kind of goes with the whole fit with him in the Tekken roster, is that there's little to no crossover with between Final Fantasy and Tekken. Now, I've only seen like literally one reaction video of somebody who's not in Tekken who reacted to Noctis being in Tekken because they were a huge Final Fantasy 15 or whatever the fuck game he's from. They were a huge Final Fantasy 15 fan. They were also into like Korean BTS, stuff like that. And you know that the game he's from has those vibes like a Korean boy band, you know. So, not hating, that's just the vibe I get from it. And so this girl was like, you know, reacting to Tekken 7 Noctis reveal. And that's the only type of reveal I've seen outside Tekken, which is not good because there should be a lot more reveals considering it's a crossover character. And the purpose of a crossover character is to get other people to look at Tekken 7 and to get more eyes on it, more sales, more interest in the host game, right? And so, like I said, there's no crossover between this particular Final Fantasy and Tekken. Now, in my opinion, it would have been better for what people are saying for a character like Tifa to have been included in Tekken 7, or even a character like even it's more far-fetched, but people have long been saying Goku or something like that. There's a lot of crossover between an anime watcher and a fighting game player, because in my opinion, the closest things to a playable anime is a fighting game, if you think about it, in terms of the villains, the protagonists, the quotes, the you know, the concept of a battle going back and forth, the strategy, like, and the fact that there's a whole genre called obviously, you know, anime fighters with Blaze Blue, with Under Night, stuff like that. Like, that would have been perfect to have a Tifa or a Goku or a fucking Vegeta or somebody, you know. It would have been great. Or just an anime based on martial arts or something. There's so many other characters that fit more besides a character that's literally using a sword in a game that's martial arts. Which, again, just because there's exceptions like Yoshimitsu doesn't mean that that still fits. It doesn't fit still. So, the last point I want to make is that, and this problem with the overall Tekken 7 roster, or overall Tekken 7 game, is that a lot of the new characters in the choreography and the move list is lax. Like, if you think about a lot of the new characters, like, for instance, let's go to his command list. So, first of all, let me talk about the choreography of some of these grabs. To where it doesn't really seem like, because whenever you do a grab in a fighting game, it seems like, oh, this is like something you see like a Bruce Lee or a Jackie Chan flick, like something that's contextual, like in the heat of the battle. Then there's like a sequence of moves, right? But a lot of these moves, like this one, it seems like the person just standing there, gets hit, and then he has all the time in the world to stick his sword in it, right? It just seems too choreographed, and it doesn't really seem like in the moment or in the context of a battle, in my opinion. I know it's nitpicking, but just look and see what I'm talking about. Like this one especially. Bam. Oh, cool powers. No context to Tekken universe, but cool powers. But you see how the guy just, oh, he got twisted, then he got hit. Like, he just like a dummy. He's literally like a dummy, no pun intended. To where the pace is so slow, to where it doesn't seem exhilarating or impactful to me. It just seems like it's all like a choreographed setup, you know?
Get ready for the next battle.
This is a great place to fight, don't you think?
Round 1. Fight.
like I said, I could be nitpicking, but this one too, you see how long it took for him to, like, the opponent didn't do anything to try and guard. I'm not saying they do, but he's just like standing there, and then he gets slashed. And there's so much delay between the initial grab and him doing that spin slash. It seems like, okay, actor, get here, place here. All right, 3, 2, 1, cut. That's what it seems like. It doesn't seem real, you know? Like, you have to give a feeling of believability to me. Now, that one was better. That one seemed in the moment faster, and a better sequence to me. So this is a good one, but the rest of them aren't that good to me. And the other problem with this is that, do you know that he's actually missing a grab? Which is a problem with the other DLC characters. They're missing grabs. If you look at Tekken 5, 6, and Tag 2, then all the characters had, maybe not Tag 2, but all the characters had, at least for the mainline Tekken games, all the characters had a front grab. They had 2 front grabs, which is a 2+4. They had a 1+3 grab, a 2+4 grab. So they had 2 frontal grabs. They had 1 grab on the left side, 1 grab on the right side, and 1 grab from behind. And in addition, some characters had command grabs, right? So why is his left and right side grab the same grab? And I think he has more grabs than other DLC characters, which don't even have. I think they only have like 3 grabs, I believe, for some of the other characters. But regardless, he's missing a grab, which is again the laziness of that you just see in Tekken 7, you know. And finally, I want to talk about the parry. Again, this is nitpicking. What is that? What the hell is that? Out of all the cool powers we see him do, he can throw his sword. He can do this. That's not how you do it. He can jump behind his back. He has all kinds of cool stuff, right? He can even jump in the air, then teleport back in the air. See that? Out of all the cool stuff we see, he can do. This is what, and usually parries for Tekken are like, people really do cool things when they parry, right? A lot of times. Like, I always compare it to like an Elisa or a Miguel, like the newcomers of old games. Like, whenever they did a parry, it was cool and it fit their character, you know? To me, parries are like when the anime comes out, if that makes sense. But he just does a slash. That's it? Really? Considering the possibilities of the techniques he has, that's very lackluster to me. So, I went on a long time. That was a Hobbes hot takes number 2 or 3 or whatever. Probably number 2. But yeah, that's my problems with this character. He has a lot of potential. He could have been done a lot better. To me, most of these issues would be solved if he was literally in Soul Calibur. Like, to me, he's just in the wrong game, you know. One saving grace, like I said, is his animations are very fluid and very good. Which, if you can give me that, then I can tolerate you. So he's not my least favorite DLC character by any means, but yeah, do better. That's all I gotta say. Tell me, let me know what you guys think, and yeah, I'll see you later.